Today we get to learn about every child outside, which is the Tennessee nomenclature aligned with the No Child Left Inside sort of movement across the country. It is a fabulous opportunity. I had a chance to be peripherally involved with the group early on, which is, like I said, a little ADD, a little distracted, so I'm not currently. But luckily we have 3 speakers here today. We're going to look at a movie first about the importance of nature play that captures the importance of nature play. And then Dare will speak, followed by Mary Beth Eckert, followed by Vera Volbrecht. And I'm assuming a number of y'all know who they are, which is why you're here. Dare is with the Tennessee State Parks, and no.
I was with State Parks for 20 years, but I'm with the Department of Health right now.
Thank you very much. In all 3 cases, and Mary Beth is with MPO, and Vera Volbrecht is with Warner Parks. That note.
So we are going to start with just a short video clip of Richard Louv, who is the author of Last Child in the Woods. Who's familiar with this book, Last Child in the Woods? Several people, okay. If you've not read the book or if you've not heard Richard Louv speak, it's just a good sort of intro to what we call the Connecting Children with Nature, No Child Left Inside, Every Child Outdoors movement, which has emerged across North America and actually across the world. And the coalition that we're involved with is the Tennessee Initiative in this movement. So, what do I do?
Try the space bar.
Do you still carry a place from your childhood in your heart? A hidden corner of your grandmother's garden, a clearing in the woods, a tree fort, or a stream filled with tadpoles and fish. Those fortunate enough to experience nature as children are likely to cherish those memories for the rest of their lives. But millions of children living in America today may never have the chance to create those memories. Fear of strangers and changes in our lifestyles are keeping our children indoors. This trend is something that alarms author Richard Louv, whose book, Last Child in the Woods, Saving Our Children from Nature Deficit Disorder, has become a bestseller. Louv's work has touched a nerve with people who realize that the ancient bond between children and nature has been broken.
Well, for all of human history and human prehistory, children in their formative years have been going outside and spending much of their time either playing or working in nature. All of human history and prehistory. Within a matter of 2 or 3 decades, we're seeing a possible virtual disappearance of that kind of activity among kids. So it's in us, it's part of us. We're genetically wired to need nature. Beyond that, there's the issue just of wonder. Wonder is probably the most important word in Last Child in the Woods. That moment when you were 3 or 4 and went out into the backyard and maybe crawled out into the weeds and found a rock and turned it over and found that you were not alone in the universe. That moment of wonder, or when you went out in the woods and just listened to the leaves move, that moment of wonder is the source of all spiritual growth. How can we cut that off? How can we cut children off from that source of wonder? And we're in danger of doing that.
Scientific studies are verifying Louv's assertion that contact with nature is not just a luxury, but is essential to healthy child development.
Some of these studies show, for instance, kids with the symptoms of attention deficit disorder, symptoms get much better with just a little bit of contact with nature. Studies of creativity show that kids who play in natural areas versus the flat asphalt or turf playgrounds, the kids in the natural areas play much more creatively. The leaders that emerge in natural areas tend to be the smartest kids. The leaders who emerge in the flat, boring playgrounds tend to be the physically strongest. Studies on stress reduction for both adults and kids show dramatic stress reduction here. Just getting out of nature.
If our response to nature is instinctual and an essential part of what it means to be human, what is keeping us from allowing our children outdoors? Luth believes that the answer to that question is fear.
Well, parents talk about, of course, being too busy, and they talk about electronics, the distraction of electronic video games and television and all of that. But when you really get to it, what parents talk about more than anything is their fear of strangers, of people. And that's why they don't want their kids going outdoors. Now, the irony is that the actual threat of stranger danger with child abductions is a fraction of what people think that it actually is. And it's been going down for the last decade. But the fear is real. Yes, there is risk outdoors from strangers and others. Not as much as we think. Yes, there is risk from nature itself. There's also huge risk in raising a generation under virtual house arrest. Risk to their spirit, risk to their sense of connection to the earth, their sense of place, their sense of community. There's a risk to their bodies in terms of child obesity, their future health. That's a huge risk. We can't allow that to happen. We can't be the last generation that has that kind of healthy, full human engagement in the world that we were given.
Even as adults, our childhood memories of experiences in nature pull at our heartstrings. Over 60 years ago, a young girl reminded us of the reasons why.
The best remedy for those who are afraid, lonely, or unhappy is to go outside, somewhere where they can be quiet, alone with the heavens, nature, and God, because only then does one feel that all is as it should be, and that God wishes to see people happy amidst the simple beauty of nature.
That young girl's name was Anne Frank.
Have some technical switching over. How's everybody doing today? Good? How many or most of y'all planners, designers? What else do we have represented? Designer, okay. All right. Well, like was said in the introduction, I have 20 years experience with state parks and working in the outdoor field. But I have been with the Department of Health since October. They got a grant to help combat the obesity epidemic in the state. So that's what I've been working on. And anyway, traditionally the Department of Health hasn't really reached out so much for to environmental groups and resource management agencies, and I think, as you can see, these days everybody's reaching out. I'm a member of the Tennessee Obesity Task Force, and we have planners and design artists in our group as well. But anyway, I've got about 10 minutes to talk about the health benefits of the outdoors, so I am really going to try to keep to my time limit here. Let's see if I can work this. Okay. All right, so anyway, just to give you an idea of why we're even talking about the health benefits of the outdoors, we've had a dramatic rise in obesity in the past 20 years. And the first on your left, in 1990, the dark blue we don't have any data for, but the pale blue has less than 10% of the population in that particular state being obese. The medium blue is 10 to 14%, and only 4 states at that particular time were in the 15 to 19%. We go to the one on 1999, and we've increased dramatically. Everyone has basically increased. The South and the middle of the country are now at 20 to 24%. If we move 9 years later to 2008, you'll see a large portion in orange, and those states are 25 to 29% of the total population are obese. The red with the dots are over 30% obese. And what they're measuring is BMIs, body mass index, so that's kind of a standard that we can get. A lot of folks believe these rates may be higher. On the kids, we get the reports through the schools, through the Coordinated School Health Program, but for the adults, it's telephone surveys and it's self-reported. So as some of you may know, some folks lie about their weight and their height, and so that also, it really may be a bigger epidemic than we're aware of. If you will notice, trying to look at why is this happening, this particular slide shows that in 1969, 42% of the trips to school were carried out either walking or biking, and 18% of the trips to school were by car. If you look at 2001, it had just about basically reversed. 13% of the kids walk and bike to school, and 53% go by car. The public transportation and the bus is about the same. The bus has gone down a little bit because more parents are driving their kids to school. This is the result of that. You see school rush hour. And if you look closely at this picture, nobody could walk or bike from this side of the school anyway, because there's no sidewalks, no crosswalks, or guards or lights. Part of the problem is bad school siting. My daughters went to a new high school in Wilson County, Wilson Central, and it's built out in the middle of nowhere off of 840. There's not one single person that can walk or ride to school even if they wanted to, okay? So when you've got that type of a situation, even if folks want to, they can't. And this is where our designers and planners are so important. But when you think about this type of setting, and you think about how much it's going to cost for busing to these school sites, what's the carbon footprint going to be, and what's the opportunity or lack thereof for physical activity. Doesn't even take into effect the effect on our air quality, and with gas prices going up, the effect on our economy. The old days, back in the 50s and 60s, this is what a good school siting looked like. It was in a neighborhood, the kids could walk or bike. We've gone away from that concept. Now you've got urban sprawl, houses in the country. Many communities are looking to return to this kind of concept. One example that I'm aware of is the Providence community up around Mount Juliet. They do have seniors there. They have mixed neighborhoods. They've got sidewalks. They've got a school in there. They've gotten their retired folks that live in the community to help with walking school buses, so there's an adult supervision, and it's giving the older folks an opportunity to, quote, be grandparents, also for them to have physical activity. This shows you kind of back in the day, back in the 50s and 60s, the good old days, when us baby boomers were out, and this was about the last group of what they're terming now free-range kids. You've heard of free-range chickens. Well, free-range kids. And if you notice in this slide, you can see different ages of kids playing together, and the older and the younger ones. Back in those times, the parents had the time to teach their kids how to bike, fish, skate. You look at the community, they've got a sidewalk and yards to play in. This one's pretty old too, and I don't think you could find a street in Tennessee, even in some of the rural areas, where you could play a game of marbles in the street, but you could learn how to play this traditional type of marbles up at Standing Stone State Park. They've dedicated part of their land to teach this old traditional game. So it can be found, but not on our streets. This is what today's youth looks like, unfortunately. Electronics, texting, TV, iPods. There's been some research done that the kids today are getting 30 to 40 hours a week of electronics. They eat junk and processed food instead of family meals. Back in the 50s, we had mealtime. The moms would cook the meals, and it was whole food. We didn't have whole food stores. It's just every store had whole food. Soda and sugar-sweetened drinks have replaced milk and water. I can remember as a kid, if we had Kool-Aid, that was a big treat, you know, and it did have sugar in it, but not so much else like some of the drinks do now. And as you can see, this young man sitting inside instead of playing outside until dark. Exploring nature, hiking, these are the type of things that we need to have our kids doing. And in the decade of the 2000s, the kids are living very structured lives instead of unstructured play, which helps develop their creativity. They have organized sports, they're on travel teams, they have lessons and classes. Their parents do have fears about the outdoors, real and imagined, such as ticks, snakes, and the stranger danger. For the state recreation plan this year, Mark Fly from UT did some research and found out that we've skipped a generation of knowing what to do outside. A lot of them are afraid of snakes. They think every snake should be killed or that it's just waiting to attack you. Ticks, the mosquitoes, things like that. They don't know how to camp, so we're having to go back and re-educate them about what to do in the outdoors. Richard Loeb, as you heard, he kind of got this whole thing started. And his website, as well as Children in Nature Network, they have wonderful websites with all kinds of ideas on activities for families to do. They have research, all kinds of good information. Obesity and physical activity, there's been a nationwide shift in physical activity. They found that active teens become active adults, but in 2005, only 35% of our high school students met the recommended level of physical activity. The growth in electronics is definitely a big influence. 21% say they play video games more than 3 hours daily. The average child watches 3 hours of TV daily. And 7.5 hours per day spent with all forms of e-media. So if you think about a 24-hour day, that's a lot of time. Time spent in front of the TV or computer is not time spent being physically active. The estimated 25% loss of playtime and 50% loss in unstructured outdoor activity. And you're going to hear us kind of harping on the unstructured because that's where kids get to use their creativity, their imagination, and that is very important when you are learning to have those kinds of skills. They have found with the No Child Left Behind, you get comments and feedback from the teachers. They're having to do so much to meet all of these guidelines that they have and teach to test scores. But part of it, time for physical education, is not happening. And we are lucky in this state. We have the Coordinated School Health Program that really tries to touch on a lot of areas, but in some instances that's one person for a whole district and they can't do it all. And physical activity, walking to and from class, is totally different than physical education where you're learning lifetime skills that you can carry on to your adult life. So, I want to get you guys involved. Why would you want to play outside? I want you guys to think back to when you were kids And I'd just like you guys to start throwing out some of the benefits that you feel that you got, whether it be physical, mental, spiritual, or emotional, from being outside. Go ahead.
I remember my grandmother, when I was a young kid, taking me around and showing me all the different trees and what they were called. And now that she's died, that's a really fond memory of mine. I think I was also instilled a love of trees. So it was physical, but it was also that emotional connection.
Wonderful. Who else?
I think I've got a lot of confidence being outside. Not a really broad area that I was allowed to roam around in, but it still felt broad enough that I was kind of exploring and doing my own thing. Kind of gave me confidence that I wasn't getting in other places.
Confidence, self-esteem, great. What else?
Imagination.
Creativity, imagination. You guys are on a roll. Go ahead.
One thing that's not really inside outside, but structured, unstructured, is that an unstructured, there's not as much disciplining compared to like an organized activity. You know, there's a right and a wrong way to do things. When you're unstructured, there's not necessarily a wrong way to do it.
I love that point of view because right now I think our country is so polarized, and sometimes we have to learn how to listen and how to talk and be open to new ideas. And so that's a great point to bring up. We've got a young person in here. What about you?
Gosh, I'm not on the spot.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
I'm trying to think which I should be able to figure something out.
She hasn't, unfortunately, hasn't done a lot of stuff outside.
Well,
Some, but I mean, she's into dance, and it's not that involved athletic like that. So,
well,
but I like to get her more involved. I'm her father, by the way. So I'll take the blame for her.
Well, and we don't want to blame. Oh, this isn't a blame game or anything like that. It's just as a society where we're at now and what we can do to try to increase it. And so we're not looking to blame anybody. Go ahead,
well, I
sweetie.
remember when I was little, when I was like 4, 5, 6, my neighbors climbed trees in our backyard and stuff like that. It was just fun. Like I don't, maybe I'm not thinking about the big picture here, something that I gained emotionally from that. I just remember it was fun. I just enjoyed it.
You brought out an outstanding point, fun, adventure. And it's kind of like with this obesity epidemic, even some of us who have advanced degrees, we study it, we go to all these 12-step or counseling or this, that, and the other. We've got all the tools, but we're still overweight or, just under the obese mark. What's up with that, okay? So it's not about that. It's about we've got to make it fun. If you have fun, if you walk, if you do some of the great paths and use some of the great greenways that you guys design, if we do what our NPO say and ride the train to work and put the bike on it so we can bike back on the greenway, there are folks that do that in this town. Those are ways that we're going to be able to sustain it. And I know sustain is the big buzzword of this year. And so if we want to sustain things, we've got to have fun in there. Because if we do it because it's the right thing to do, it's not going to last very long.
Because of the exposure to fear, when you're playing outside, and she was talking about climbing trees, it's a good thing, particularly for children, to develop the skills when they become adults, to find themselves in places that are potentially fearful. If you put your foot there and the branch breaks, you're going to fall. So you're kind of on the edge, and it's kind of that, it's a natural rush and natural use of adrenaline. It's like you're playing in the stream, and it's challenging yourself in ways physically and intellectually that teaches you what those boundaries are, and then gives you the product confidence when you overcome those hurdles that you don't honestly get just because you trounced your brother or not.
That's a great point, and I love the fact that you brought up risk-taking, because some folks really have a lot of fear, and that keeps them from even going outside their house. There's others of us that have to have that adrenaline rush, And we need to have the cheap thrills. We need to climb up a mountain and then jump off backwards and go down it. And that's a good thing, because some of us have that inside of us and we need it, but if we don't have the outlets to go and do that, then we may end up doing other risks that aren't as safe or healthy, like drugs and alcohol and sex and all those things that get young people in trouble. And we'll talk about that in a couple more slides, but we're going to see how you guys did. This is the top 10 or 10 list of things. So stronger bones, lower cancer. This is all research that has been done by the scientists, not just my own personal opinions. But anyway, they're finding that there's a lot of folks have vitamin D deficiencies, and I apologize for all this being so jammed up, but I try to get it on one slide. Vitamin D deficiencies because they're not getting outside. If we get outside, we have trimmer and healthier kids. Improved eyesight, that's been another research thing that's come up because the kids are so tuned into the electronics. You know how your eyes get after the computer and they're not out seeing the big scene, that's affecting their eyesight. Less depression and hyperactivity. A lot of us, when I was growing up, I never heard of attention deficit. I probably have it, but I wasn't diagnosed because we had the outdoors so we could get outside and run around and do it. You're better at making friends. We did not know when we were out in the neighborhoods playing with all these different age kids that we were learning team building, leadership skills, conflict management, communication skills. We didn't know all that. We thought we were just playing. But we did learn that. A lot of our youth today, they don't have those opportunities to interact because they're having to be quiet in school or they're texting everybody. So they're not learning how to do a lot of those things we learned on the playground. How to take risks, boundaries. Boundaries are a big issue. But they're better at making friends, more creative, less acting out at school and at home. Better grades. There's all kinds of research showing improvement in schoolwork with being outside. In fact, there's some schools now, Vera probably knows more about this, but I heard the other day that where they're having these schools where they're teaching everything outside to try to get some research about that and see what kind of effect it has on those kids. So good for them. Nature aiding child development. We finally got some of the doctors to get on board. The American Academy of Pediatrics are stressing in a clinical report they just came out with about the social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development needs that are met through outdoor play. And they've got some great research and a website. We're wanting to work with the doctors, not just the pediatricians, but all doctors. Let's see. How about if you went to the doctor and you got a prescription to go outside and play instead of some Xanax or Zoloft or whatever the current drug is? What if your kid, instead of Adderall or one of the attention deficit drugs, was told to get outside 3 times a week? I'm not saying that being outdoors is going to solve all the world problems, but I'm saying there's a lot of mental and spiritual issues that can be resolved by time outdoors. At-risk children, study by the American Institute for Research for the California Department of Education found that week-long outdoor education programs produce a 20% increase in measured mastery of science concept, enhanced cooperation and conflict resolution skills, gains in self-esteem, problem solving, motivation to learn, and classroom behavior. I know out in California they've also been working with the prison population, the young ones, and getting them involved in gardening programs or working with animals. And they have seen less recidivism out of those folks that get to work with those type of programs. Wilderness trips for teens. 1998, Stephen Keller at Yale studied youth with Outward Bound, Knowles Conservation Association, found that the teens' experiences inspired lasting growth on personal, intellectual, and even spiritual levels. Participants left with greater self-esteem, self-confidence, independence, autonomy, and initiative. I can personally speak to this. I was in my 20s and I went on a similar Knowles trip. It was called Wilderness Education. Spent 5 weeks living in the Tetons in the backcountry, and the next summer went and taught in Virginia. But it changed my whole life. And I'm in my 50s now, and it still is influencing me. So it doesn't matter if you're a teen in trouble or an adult or whatever. These wilderness trips really can be helpful. Parents must lead the way, grandparents must lead the way. I know the grandparents were asking a lot of it because a lot of you are taking care of your parents as well as helping to raise your grandkids, but it's going to take all of us to get these kids back outside where they need to be. Also remember, outdoors is not just for kids. We need to get outside. We've got to take care of ourselves to get rejuvenated. The word recreation is recreate, if you look at it, and that's what you can do in the outdoors. Where it's gonna, a lot of it, we can't just have tons of green space. We're running out of farms, we're running out of parks. We do need to try to have some conditions when some of these big building groups come into a community where they have to allow so much space for green space and not the part they don't want, the part they can't build on. We're gonna have a decent spot. But we also need to go with complete streets. Now this is a street just normally, if you look at it, it wouldn't be very inviting to walk or bike on. But after they've done a complete street makeover, it's a lot more inviting. But we're also going to have to educate our drivers that bicyclists have the right to be on the road and that we don't need to be cussing at them or trying to run them over. And I was very glad to see that. I think they are going to try to do something with the driver's test now that will include bicycling and how you're supposed to act. So I'm a member of this Tennessee Obesity Task Force. We've got all kinds of folks in there, and we've got over 100 pages of different tasks that we're taking on. We would love for you to be involved. I've got some sheets that you can sign up for and be a part of it. We've got meetings once a month. Tomorrow we're coming up with our legislative forum. It's at the Y from 9 to 11. We'd love to have you join us, or 10 to 12, I'm sorry. And you can see me afterwards for more information. Veer's going to talk more about this, but we were so grateful that we were able to get the legislature to agree upon something unanimously this year. I think it was a first in a long time, and probably be the last for a long time. But anyway, we came up with 10 things that we feel like every child in the state ought to have the opportunity to be involved with. Walking in the woods, camping under the stars, playing outside, exploring nature, climbing a tree, going fishing, watching wildlife, growing a garden, splashing in the water, visiting a farm, flying a kite, okay? So we have a website, and it's going to get even better now that Veer's back at the helm, and so she's just, we need to clone Veer is what we need to do to really make this go. But anyway, thank you so much, and anybody have any questions, I'd love to speak with you afterwards.
My name is Mary Beth Eichert. I'm with the Nashville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and we are a regional transportation planning authority covering about 7 Middle Tennessee counties, and we plan, prioritize, and program anything that has to do with federal dollars for transportation in the region. And we're governed by an executive board of city and county mayors from approximately 24 member municipalities. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about just some of the initiatives of our, we have a really great bicycle and pedestrian planner on staff. Her name is Leslie Meehan, but she's actually in Vancouver right now to accept an award from the Institute of Transportation Engineers for our regional bicycle and pedestrian study. So I'm kind of covering for her today, but I'll do the best I can. This really is her passion and her expertise. So just talking a little bit about the ways that active transportation helps communities and children increase outdoor time, getting physical activity during travel.
It's the arrow.
Oh, thanks. So where do we spend most of our time? We spend 90% of it indoors. you think it sounds like a lot, it is. That means, not very much time left for spending outside. And for some families, the only time they spend outside is from going from the house to the car. Once you're in a car, you're also inside. You're inside a vehicle. And many children, they're seeing nature through, the window of the car, and maybe they don't even look up from their, Game Boy or their DVD player to even see nature through the car window. Children spending time inside and the amount of cars on the road are also interrelated. And a new study shows that parents actually feel safer when children are inside and away from vehicular traffic. So the image on the left here shows the miles we drive each year are increasing at a steady rate. That's VMT, or vehicle miles traveled. The image on the right shows that at the same time obesity rates are soaring. Nearly 1/3 of kids today overweight or obese. A new report, it's called the Transportation Prescription, shows how our roadways are contributing to the expense and decline of our overall health. And in fact, for every dollar spent on transportation, we spend $4 on treating health disease related to physical inactivity. You'll also notice that the rates of walking and bicycling to school have dropped exponentially from just under 50% in 1969 to less than 15% today. And we'll talk more about that in a second. So one notion that the Nashville area NPO is promoting is that streets are for communities, not just for cars. 1/3 of Americans don't drive. So if we build streets only for cars, we're neglecting a large portion of our population, including children. In Davidson County alone, 28,000 households do not own cars. And streets are more than routes for transportation. They connect us to the places we shop, work, eat, and play, and literally link our communities together. Another idea we talk about is that everyone's a pedestrian. Even when you're walking from a car to the store, you're still a pedestrian. And it's therefore important that our streets are walkable to support pedestrian activities and pedestrian trips. So how do we get out of our cars and spend time outside, make ourselves and our communities healthier? Active transportation is a solution that we're pretty heavily promoting. It's a phrase that describes movement as a part of transportation. People who are active when they're going from place to place get physical activity and spend time outside. For example, we know that 1/3 of people who simply take transit get their recommended daily physical activity. New research to show that transit riders overall are thinner. Cars aren't bad. Not all car trips can or should be replaced, but we can transfer a huge number of trips from cars. 50% of trips in urban areas are 3 miles or less, and 40% are 2 miles or less. It takes about 10 minutes to bike 2 miles at a moderate pace and 20 minutes to walk a mile. So if we get outside to walk, bike, or take transit, we're getting healthier, reducing gas consumption and traffic congestion, and making our air cleaner and our communities more pleasant places to live. When we talk about children and obesity, we talk about healthy foods also, in addition to physical activity. Transportation is a huge issue when it comes to accessing healthy foods, whether it's at a garden, a farmer's market, or the local grocery store. Having a bus, a bike path, or a sidewalk is an integral part to helping people access healthy foods. And we hear that pretty strongly from the areas within Middle Tennessee that we know are food deserts. Some redundancy with the earlier presentation, but if you recognize this scene, you know that nearly half of all kids arrive at school in their parents' cars, 30% of morning congestion attributed to people dropping their kids off at school. And this is true for kids even who live 1/4 to 1/2 mile from the school. It's a very walkable or bikeable distance. A lot of times because parents are afraid, due to safety hazards on the roads in between home and school, you're going to spend more time waiting in the hookup line at school than the entire walk or bike trip would have taken you. So Safe Routes to School is a program that aims to change this situation. There's been $800 million since 2005 allocated to Safe Routes to School, going out to local schools and communities to make it safer for more children to walk and bike to school. Most of those funds are infrastructure type of improvements like sidewalks, bike paths, and crosswalks. But it's also teaching children to bike, bicycle, and pedestrian safety, increasing law enforcement around schools, and changing our habits through encouragement programs like walking school buses and so on. And this is a really important program because we have to counter the backseat child where children are only seeing nature through their car window, and get back to those 1969 levels where kids are able to be independent, free range, and get green time on the way to school. A couple of examples from the Safe Routes to School program. Evanston, Illinois, they put a multi-use path into an urban nature preserve area, so kids are walking and biking to school every day through a small woodsy area and walking by a nature discovery center and placards. And in Springfield, Missouri, Safe Routes to School reclaimed a park next to a school that was unused due to safety concerns, and now the school buses drop children off at the park. Volunteers walk with children through the park to school every day, and that park is now used by families in that community on evenings and weekends. So it's important to realize that when we make improvements so that children can walk and bike to school, we're also improving their access to parks and playgrounds. Just a little bit about Middle Tennessee. Our staff, in coordination with Walk Bike Nashville, wrote a 2-week elementary school curriculum for PE teachers to teach Safe Routes to School bicycling and walking safety program in elementary schools. And there have been about 100 PE teachers trained, grants underway now to teach other NPO schools, school county systems. And we're also collecting data on Walk to School Day. We got a grant from MTSU, Center for Physical Activity and Health and Youth, and we're coordinating that through the National Community Health and Wellness team. And we also offered a 2009 grant for Tennessee to become a Safe Routes to School network state. And that program supports Safe Routes to School across Tennessee, and we're only one of 20 states to get that funding. Again, a little bit of redundancy with the earlier presentation, but school siting is kind of a policy initiative that Leslie's really been taking an active leadership role on, just how the built environment influences whether people or children are getting outside, especially to walk or bike to school. It's just simply about where we're locating schools. Here's some numbers on just kind of the big box approach, building fewer and larger schools that are housing more students. And let's see what these schools look like. One key factor for children walking and biking to school is the amount of distance in between home and the school. When schools are built on the outskirts of communities, distances are too great, and you end up with traffic jams near schools of parents and school buses waiting to drop off kids. So just making sure that schools are sited near children so that they can walk and bike to school, and so the school can once again become kind of the heart of the community. This is kind of an example of a neighborhood school, just one that might support more physical activity for students, more outside time, which is also linked to, as we saw in the earlier presentation, better academic performance, better attendance, less truancy, better behavior, and a sense of student ownership in the school. You know, while having more schools in a school district may seem like a good cost savings up front, a lot of times school boards look at, okay, how much does the land cost, how much is it going to take to construct this building, but the cost in terms of money saved, that, you know, reducing busing, in terms of the cost of fuel to fill those buses up, air quality, obesity, and just overall healthier students who are better prepared to learn. Those factors, you know, aren't necessarily considered on the front end, but hopefully increasingly they will be. Second policy initiative that we're you know, really a major proponent of, especially as it relates to the update of our long-range transportation plan that's going on right now, is a complete streets policy strategy. And there are a lot of states and cities across the nation who are adopting complete streets policies. I've learned recently that Metropolitan Nashville government is in the process of drafting one. City of St. Louis was the latest to adopt one. In terms of, you know, kind of comparable peer cities, but basically complete streets are streets that provide a variety of transportation options suitable for all ages and ability levels so that people have choices in how they'd like to get around. And we did a regional symposium earlier this year on complete streets where we had some national experts from the National Complete Streets Coalition, and we had about 125 planners, engineers, health department folks, and community members come for that. Many of our communities don't have complete streets policies yet. They lack sidewalks, crosswalks, and bike paths where kids could walk and bike safely and separately from traffic. It's interesting to note that simply increasing a neighborhood's walkability by 5% decreases vehicle miles by 6% and increases both walking and biking. So just by adding a sidewalk improvement, it's kind of a ripple effect. So as part of that complete streets mentality, we've recently did a major study, a regional bicycle and pedestrian study. It took about 18 months to complete, had about 2,400 participants in terms of public involvement. And it's a strategic vision for walking and bicycling in the region. And it just looked at improved options for walking and bicycling, especially around major activity centers. One component is a bicycle pedestrian facilities demand model that helped us prioritize where sidewalks and bike lanes should be built. It's largely based on density and population and where larger numbers of people who live closer to areas like schools and employment centers. And some of the trip data that we entered into that demand model, the purposes of the trip are listed there. One element of that bicycle pedestrian study, in terms of linking health and transportation, we used an innovative method of analyzing bike projects, looking at census data to determine areas that are low income, minority, and elderly, which roughly correlated with the populations with the highest rates of health disparity and the least access to cars. So by concentrating sidewalks and bikeways in those areas, we're able to provide an opportunity, a cost-feasible, cost-reasonable opportunity for physical activity and mobility through active transportation. And just to kind of, really kind of hammer it home in terms of how major a policy shift this is in terms of moving us away from our previous iterations of our long-range plan. We actually developed new scoring criteria for every single project that was submitted to us from our member municipalities. And Leslie, our biped planner, scored every single one of those projects. And if your project included a biped component, for instance, in a road widening project, if you added bike lanes or sidewalks, you got extra points. So we're now developing that regional transportation plan. The draft is almost complete. It'll be adopted by our mayors, executive board mayors in October, and submitted to the federal government. But we're basically prioritizing where and how to spend federal transportation dollars in our member counties, and we've put a strong emphasis on health and active transportation by including safety concerns for non-motorized modes in the scoring criteria, and also physical activity opportunities into our evaluation of projects submitted to us. And we were really pleased to find that the vast majority of projects submitted included active transportation facilities such as transit stops, bikeways, and sidewalks. And so by linking health to transportation dollars, we're ensuring that these facilities are a priority in our transportation system. And active transportation is one of the three major policy components of the long-range plan. And I invite you to read more about that on our website, and we're participating in just about every social media channel you can imagine. So join the conversation and let us hear from you in terms of if this is something that you think is a good move, and maybe let your political and elected officials know that this is a strategy that you would endorse before the plan is adopted in October. So be happy to take any questions at the end.
Hi, so I'm Vera Volbrecht. I'm the director of the Warner Park Nature Center here in Nashville, and I'm also co-chair of the Tennessee Every Child Outdoors Coalition. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have already been covered today, and maybe add a few things. I'm probably going to go quickly through the beginning of my presentation and focus mostly on the coalition and what we're doing. This is our fabulous logo. We do have a website, everychildoutdoorstn.org. The coalition started in 2008, and we are not a nonprofit, we are not staffed, we are a coalition of professionals and parents and individuals from across Tennessee who want to see kids reconnecting with the outdoors for many of the reasons that Dare and Mary Beth mentioned. So, the initiative did start as a result of Richard Lou's book, Last Child in the Woods. As we said before, it has won awards, and it did coin this phrase, nature deficit disorder, which is really being accepted by educators and health professionals and people around the world. And Richard Lou started an organization called the Children in Nature Network. Nature deficit is, as you've heard, children today spend less time outdoors. When we talk about children, we're really talking about North American children over the last 20 years, or what these statistics refer to. About 7.5 hours a day outside of school. I think that's important, that they are in front of some kind of electronic media on average. And obesity rates, as you've heard, have increased. Why are kids staying outdoors? Some things are related to fear parents have, fear children may have, but also lack of open space and access to nature. Overscheduling isn't something that we've heard about yet today, but kids having lessons and a lot of structured time inside school and out of school and not just free playtime also contributes to staying indoors. So going to dance lessons on a regular basis may not give you time to just go in the backyard and play. Not that lessons are bad, but there's the balance issue. Liability issues, especially Richard Lou in the book refers to homeowners association not allowing kids to have tree houses in the backyard, because that might be a liability. If your kid's friend comes over and falls out of your tree house, then they might sue you. So we are very litigious. We think about things differently than we did 20 years ago. And of course, fear of nature somewhat. Importance of outdoor play, we've heard about this a lot. There are outdoor nature play spaces being created all over the country. This is a picture from the nature play area at Warner Park. If you've not been there, please come visit. But all of the benefits of unstructured outdoor play, if you eat a bushel of dirt when you're a kid, it does increase your immune system. Also, there's been a lot of research done about what helps one develop an environmental ethic as an adult, what helps you develop a conservation ethic, and frequent unstructured time in nature in the outdoors is a contributing factor. Having an adult mentor like a grandparent who took you to the farm, who took you in the woods on a regular basis, going camping, going to places with Girl Scouts, those kinds of childhood experiences that are regular and recurring are what help adults develop conservation ethics. And as our population grows and our sprawl continues and environmental issues become more impacting on our lives, I think it's important that we think about children developing those ethics for the next 20, 50, 100 years. So solutions, getting the word out that this is an issue. It's contributing to children's health in all areas, not only physical health, but emotional, spiritual, psychological. Taking kids out during the school day. One of the initiatives of the Every Child Outdoors Coalition is working with the formal education system to do that. Getting kids excited about going outdoors, designing safe spaces, and also increasing connections through going to places like parks and nature centers. So like I said, we started in 2008. Richard Lou came and spoke at Hume Fogg. I don't know if any of you heard him there. The National Wildlife Federation actually funded a stakeholder meeting at that time. This is one of their top 2 initiatives of NWF, and they've been of great support to us. So we had about 60 people at that meeting who said, yes, we want to form a coalition in Tennessee. And we developed this mission statement. What we really tried to do with our mission was not have this be an environmental organization, and I think that's an important thing to emphasize. We understand that this is an issue that crosses many disciplines. It crosses health, transportation and infrastructure planning, formal education, and we want to make sure that getting kids outside is part of being environmentally aware, but it's also more integral to child development in every way. So we do have 5 goal areas that we're working on. Healthy children, we have a subcommittee for each one of these that I put our goals and objectives on the back counter. If you want to take those on your way out, you may. If anyone wants to be involved with any of these committees or the coalition, please talk to me after, or you can email me, and I would love for any and all of you to be involved. So promoting and improving children's health, developing healthy communities, so things like school siting and safe routes to school in our planning and infrastructure in all communities. Working with the formal education system to have outdoor learning spaces and experiences integrated into our schools. Increasing outdoor opportunities through non-formal experiences, and that would be things like nature centers, camps, getting the word out about state parks and accessibility to those resources, and then promoting the message, which I'm doing today, but which we want everyone to do. So when I speak to a group, I always ask if each of you today or in the next week communicate with 10 of your friends or colleagues about what you heard today, that this is an issue affecting our youth, that we have a coalition in Tennessee, we have a website. If you tell 10 people who didn't know about that before today, then that's spreading the word. And it really affects all of us. I think everybody wants our children to be as healthy as they can in all ways. And so that's part of what I would like to see you all do today. But also, we do have a formal media campaign that we are trying to find funding for. In the last 2 years, we have developed, we call it the Eco Dozen. That's the Outdoor Bill of Rights, 12 things we would like all children to experience before they go to high school. It was a General Assembly, a Senate resolution that was passed and signed by the governor in March. We also are developing through our formal education committee a state environmental literacy plan. Through No Child Left Behind, there is a No Child Left Inside piece that has passed the House, and they're trying to get passed in the Senate. This is in the federal government, which would connect federal funding to the states for this initiative for getting kids outside through the formal education system. A state has to have an environmental literacy plan in order to get this funding. So groups are working with the State Department of Ed to make this plan a reality in Tennessee. We have a listserv. If you visit our website, you can sign up to be on the listserv. And we send out articles and information about this issue, but also meetings, events, all kinds of things go across the listserv. I'm sure you all are on lots of listservs, and some are more effective than others, but please, if you're interested, sign up. We do have a website which was designed pro bono by a Knoxville company. And in May, we had our first Every Child Outdoors Summit. It was a governor's summit on Every Child Outdoors, and a couple people in the room were there. We had over 160 people attend from all over the state. We get really excited about moving forward on this issue. So these are just some reminders about why we need to get kids outside. I think fun, enjoyment, exploration, wonder, health in all ways is really the main thing. So if you have any questions, please let me know. There's some literature on the back, and thanks for letting us talk about this issue.